Thank you so much for staying with KTN News Diary. Now, women rights activists want African countries to adopt and ratify the Maputo Protocol. The activists say this is the only way to improve justice systems for countries. They made the remarks during the 20th anniversary of the Maputo Protocol held in Nairobi, Kenya. So far, about 44 member states of the African Union have ratified the Maputo Protocol, with about 11 countries yet to do so. What frustrates the full implementation of the protocol? Dorothy Otieno, the programs coordinator for the African Women's Development and Communications Network, that's FEMNET, now joins us live. Good morning.
Good morning.
The celebrations began yesterday. Today is the climax of the event. Maybe what are some of the highlights so far?
Yeah, let me just say Maputo Protocol at 20 is a key highlight for every African woman and girl. We wish this space could bring all of us together. As the stalwart who went before us, we really thank them for starting the journey of Maputo Protocol, because this is the only protocol that gives right to the African women and girls. And so we are looking at 20 years when this protocol was adopted.
Yeah.
How has the journey been? How has it been for African women and girls? And for me, I'm looking at a young person who was born, a young girl who was born 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Do they even know about, Maputo Protocol and the rights that, they are born with, because there are people who went before them to fight for their rights. And so for us now, 20 years now, is to come back and take stock. How far have we been?
Yeah.
And of course, the issue has always been, the implementation. So the protocol is there, the guidelines are there, and some member states have signed, some have ratified with reservations, because they feel like there's some aspects in that article that probably don't align with their cultures or perspective, or the way they would want things to be. Some completely, I want to congratulate South Sudan. They're the recent baby who actually submitted their instruments at the African Union just the other day to say, we don't want to be left behind as we commemorate 20 years of Maputo Protocol. So there are different levels. Despite it being a progressive protocol, despite it being, I think this is one of the protocols that was easily adopted, because it came into force in 2000. It was adopted in 2003, and it came into force in 2005, with all African countries, aligning to it. But the process of, putting it into implementation has always been a problem. But then we also have those who are, they ratified, but they're not reporting their progress to the African Union. So it's a whole process. It's like a traffic light. Yes, we have ratified. Yes, we are implementing, and we are reporting it. So those are three different aspects that now we are coming back to look. 20 years then, where are we?
Maybe you can tell us, where are we?
I'm looking at Africa in general.
As a continent, yes.
And I see we are making steps, but a lot needs to be done, especially in implementation. A protocol is as good as the implementation. And of course, now reporting. That this is what we have been able to do, because it helps you monitor your progress. Just saying that we're implementing, you need documentation to show that this is where we are. And that is where the ministries of gender come in. We know there's some aspects that have been contexted, especially when it comes to issues to do with marriage, issues to do with sexual reproductive health, and especially in the African context. So it is good when you're reporting, so that we know what are the challenges, and we are able to keep track and see how best can this protocol still be implemented, even if you have reservations, because it is for the African women and girls. We don't want to feel like a certain country has ratified and everything is going well with them, yet us in our country, we are having reservation, and that is holding us back. We want all the African women and girls to enjoy this right, because it is a human right.
And you talked about the setbacks, and even Kenya was not among the first countries to ratify this treaty. And so most of the African countries feel that this is not an African thing. It's a Western treaty that is being imposed on us, especially on the sexual and reproductive health rights for women. Let's first talk about these setbacks. What are some of the main issues that countries that are yet to ratify the treaty, or those that did it with reservations have here?
Yeah, like I mentioned, the issue of sexual reproductive health has been prominent, of course, even to countries that have not ratified that aspect. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, this is a protocol that came for African women. That means it is African women who were in that space.
Yeah.
And so for me, the issue of the Article 1 that talks about equality now comes into play, because they sat down and they thought, we are human beings, we are equal, so our rights need to be equal. Then Article 9 talks about leadership, decision making. For us to come up with this protocol, there were leaders, they thought through it, and there were African leaders. I don't think the Western was in that space to start with, right? Because this was our protocol, and the people who were in that seat actually thought through in the African context. Of course, there are those, you know, reservations where we say we are borrowing from, you know, the Western part, but it was meant to address, and that's why we are saying this is the only protocol among the many charters that we have that now speaks of the African women and girls. And of course, as time changes with technology and, you know, progression, things change in the course, and that is where people now, you know, start coming up with issues like, oh, we are reserved on this because we feel like the context doesn't fit us at the moment. And those are things that we tend to appreciate with time, and that's why we say, even with the protocol in reporting, we need to know what are the emerging issues. And I want to tell you, we have an African Girls and Young Women Festival happening, because these girls, they were not there when the Maputo Protocol was coming, but now they know, and they're looking for their space in that Maputo Protocol, and they raise very good concerns. You know, this protocol did not factor in our ideas as African young girls and, you know, women and young girls. Did not factor in our perspective as girls and young women. Because even the issue of language, they feel like it was more of women than African women and girls. So those are things that keep on coming, and of course it is a document, and I believe it is a live document that can always be, you know, looked up to, and that's why at 20 years we're looking. Are there things that we need to change, and there are things that we need to review? And so member states need to be, you know, make it inclusive for every woman and girl to ensure that their voices are represented in that protocol.
So Dorothy, let's look at what was agreed upon. Was it in 2005? And why, as a woman rights activist, if I may call you so, why you think that all the member states should really sign and adopt this treaty?
Like I said, it is our treaty. The people who were that in the space, they represented our views, and so we should sign it. But again, our views must get inside, and that means including all voices. Like now, like I said, we are having side events. Everybody is coming with their ideas and suggestions. This is a good document, like we say even with our constitution. It is a good document, but could we also factor in the voices of the young people? Could we factor in, where are the people with disability, women with disability in this space? Are there voices in this Maputo Protocol? So it is a good document, it is progressive. How do we make it better? And of course, the first step is to sign it, that this is our thing. Now we can actually domesticate it in a good way that now addresses our needs in the context.
And so what are some of these rights that women could enjoy if all countries signed the treaty?
Everything. Everything. Peace and security for women, equality for women. And I want to single out gender equality, because we've come a long way as African women and girls. There were times we were not even allowed to vote. There were times we were restricted to the kitchen as our workplace. You know, it's been a journey. Even education, accessing education was an issue. But now this gives us an opportunity for us to have equal access, equal participation in decision making. And that's why even in policy making, Article 9 that talks about women political participation in the process and in decision making, we need to have equal representation. I know in Kenya there is this big elephant of the 2/3 gender rule. Yet we have assigned to the Maputo Protocol. We do not contest Maputo Protocol Article 9. But what is happening in country? 2/3. We're only asking for a 1/3 representation, and it's still at all order. So the Maputo Protocol is regional, but how do we contextualize it to now address our issues on the ground? So there are several aspects. The issue of marriage comes in, the issue of land ownership for women. So, and especially widows. You lose your husband, and you stand a risk of losing even your matrimonial home. So how do you safeguard your home even after your husband is gone? Because you have children and generations to follow you. So this Maputo Protocol actually gives us a leeway, a right for us to exercise our rights as human beings, not just as women, to be in an equal platform. So everything in the Maputo Protocol, to say so, is for the benefit of the African woman.
And Dorothy, I agree with you when you talk about we need to review this protocol, because some of them people opposing the or countries opposing the protocol say that, for instance, the Maputo Protocol does not give a guideline on how to eradicate FGM. It just suggests that countries or women should be protected from harmful practices. So why should we then report to the African Union? Okay. There's also another concern about Maputo Protocol being a cultural war. You know that African countries are entitled, all right, and hold so strongly to their cultural values, and so they feel that it's a way of eradicating the traditional African cultural values. So how do we strike a balance so that even as you continue to campaign that call upon countries to really adopt the treaty, then their fears are taken care of?
Like I said, we appreciate our cultures. Even in Kenya, we have so many, tribes and cultures, different cultures that we appreciate. But at a regional level or continental level, Kenyan is known for our Maasai. The first thing you see a Maasai, Kenya. It's our trademark. But we appreciate that we all are different. We are diverse. And what we are saying is Maputo Protocol was universal for all of us. And that's why each country needs now to come up with different aspects of making it work for them. I will tell you the issue of FGM. FGM, even I think in Kenya we have the anti-FGM act that is in place. But I will tell you the issue of the boundaries are very polarized. So you come to Kenya, it is illegal to do FGM. But if you go to the neighboring country, probably it is legal. So what do people do? So they will traffic the girls to the other country through the borders. They do the FGM, they come back because they feel like the laws on the other end are very lenient when it comes to FGM. This is one issue that was raised with our civil society organizations working on FGM, that the problem that we are facing is the porousness of our borders, because once FGM is done in the neighboring country, you cannot track, you cannot arrest, you cannot take punitive measures against the other country. It is only limited within your borders. So those issues of, boundaries, how do we merge? And that's why Maputo Protocol brings all together to say FGM is bad for our girls. Can we just agree that FGM is bad for our girls and see how best we can be able to tackle it at national level? The other issue you talk about, the universal way the Maputo Protocol is coming. I think in my point, I would say that it is a good thing, because for me, even at this point, we are Africans. We identify ourselves as African. But there's aspects when you are in another country, you're regarded as a foreigner. So if I go to Uganda, I am a foreigner in Uganda because I'm a Kenyan in nationality. If I want to go outside EAC, and I'm so glad that we have EAC where we can now move freely, but if I want to go outside EAC, I need a visa. And that limits me as an African person to be able to interact with my peers from the other countries. So we have those boundaries that limit us to an aspect where we are not together as African women and girls. And we appreciate cultures and we respect cultures, but then there are also those harmful cultures that have always impacted on the African women and girls. Like I said, the issues where women are still looked at second-class citizens. Women are not in decision making. Women, the inheritance, where once your husband dies, you need to be inherited. So those harmful practices, we say that they're retrogressive. They take us back. They're not progressive. They're not making us. So they're harmful practices that we really need to also shun.
And Dorothy, what do you think is the main, the best way to ensure implementation? Because we also have reservations like occasioned by the cultural values that different African countries have. And I remember Kenya was not among the countries to sign. That time, it was President Kibaki who was in power. And the controversial issue was really the fact that the protocol was advocating for, let me just call it total legalization of abortion, because if, for example, you say if the pregnancy can affect the mental health of a woman, then that means that it can be an argument and the reason for total legalization of abortion. And so the argument was that when we legalize abortion, then it meant demand for abortion in the continent, which many were opposed to. Do you think it's the right time as a continent to have this conversation on legalizing abortion? I know we've talked about FGM, which many African countries, even communities here in Kenya, held so strongly, and they eradicated. I mean, most people think that FGM is wrong, and they have stopped doing so. But the feeling is different when it comes to abortion.
The feeling is different when it comes to abortion, and I agree. But for me, is looking at why are we talking about abortion in the first place? It's about the safety, and we're talking about safe abortion, not just abortion. So the language is also very critical in this space. Safe abortion, because safe means putting the dignity of the woman first. It means putting her life first, putting her awareness and consciousness, because this is something that is not forced on her. It has different aspects, but for me, I want to center on the safety first. And of course, like I said, we can always come up with context to see how best do we address this issue, rather than totally refusing it at all. Because when you refuse it at all, you're also, curtailing the rights of a portion of the population.
All right. So looking forward, the event continues today. Maybe what are some of the conversations that you're looking forward? I know we have heard girls saying that our views were not included and all that, but as a continent and with the emerging issues of human rights and women's rights and the especially gender-based violence, what are some of the conversations that we are looking forward to having today?
Yeah, so I know in most of these ministerial discussions, our ministries are always there. And like I said, the issue of reporting has always been a key issue, because the civil society will always do shadow, following up on governments to see where we are at with the so many protocols that we have. But we realize that some of our, whatever is reported at the AU is not the reality on the ground. In Kenya, we say things on the ground are totally different. So we feel like, in as much as, there's some reportings that are done on this protocol, some of them are not the reality on the ground. And so the civil society is also coming in and saying, listen, the government, we need facts on this Maputo Protocol so that we are realistic on how far we are. We don't want to look good, and the governments, always want to look good. But for us, we are introspecting and saying, let's see where the problem is, and let's see how best we can work together to see that this thing happens. And for me, it's about the political goodwill. If we have the political goodwill, then the civil society, the government, and all other stakeholders can come together and work towards making sure that this instrument is implemented in the best way. So engaging all stakeholders, including the African girls and young women in the decision making.
And so why was Kenya selected to host the 20th anniversary? Is it because we are making strides towards implementation of the Maputo Protocol? We the other day had the KDHS report, and it revealed that the cases of FGM are on the decline. Yes.
Of course, there are so many factors regarding hosting the event in Nairobi. Maputo Protocol was born in Mozambique. And there were discussions. I remember I was in that discussion with the African Union on where exactly, because for us we felt like we need to go back to where it started. Let's go back to where it started and see how the journey has been. There were conversations about holding it in Addis, where the African Union headquarters is. But of course we settled on Nairobi because, again, even issues of access is an issue. Nairobi seems to be, Kenya seems to be very accessible for other African countries, even in terms of traveling. A country like DRC, people who live in Bukavu, they have to go through Kigali sometimes to get into Kinshasa. So there are those logistical issues, and you know, the countries and their different immigration issues that made Nairobi a center where they felt like it's a space where they can bring more women and girls. But like you said also, there has been progress. And Kenya is a very progressive country. Kenya is a country that is very open and lively to discussions. Kenya is a country that has allowed the human rights, you know, to come, the civil society to come up and be able to contribute in addressing this agenda. So those issues, and of course, we are trying to see how best we can work with the government to see this. But for us as civil society, we thought, why not come to Kenya? Because we have an issue with our gender issues, you know. Our truth agenda issue is still there, but I know the president, there is some task force set by the president to be able to settle that. But I'm also saying the issue of representation is a goodwill thing. And I was thinking in my mind that if the president takes a chance to declare his support, and I know he did so well during his campaign about the women agenda, and did a lot of promises, you know, in engaging women in different political positions, that would have trickled down. I was really looking forward to that. To having a 50-50 cabinet. A 50-50 cabinet. But if not 50-50, that 1/3 that is in the constitution. Because that meant that the practice would have been, you know, trimmed down. And everybody wants to align to the president, you know, what is being done, the practice that is being done on the top. So that for me is a big thing. And even with the Maputo Protocol, political goodwill is very critical in ensuring the full implementation of this.
All right, Dorothy, we have to wrap it up, but I wish you all the best in your deliberations today.
Thank you, and I wish that this space was open for every other person, but most importantly, there is need for comprehensive education, and this now I want to challenge the Ministry of Education. Sometimes we go to school and their curriculums, they really don't talk deep comprehensively about, you know, these protocols. 20 years, the children in the school, this protocol is for them. They might not know. So is there a way, and that's why I was saying, can we infuse, even in our curriculum, can we ensure that our children grow up knowing some of this knowledge outside here? Our constitution, how it is operating, the way, you know, policies are formulated in the parliament. So we need to start practicing that even at education level and even from home, where we can educate our children.
All right, Dorothy, thank you so much for making time for us. And that's it for the News Diary this morning. Thank you for watching. I'll be back shortly with the News Center. Keep watching. Thank you.